Warburtons coming into gluten-free and the background, that was back in 2011, which seems a lifetime away in some respects now. The business came into gluten-free based upon the fact that they are the UK's leading baker, and they felt that gluten-free was a natural entry point for a brand like Warburtons. And I guess there was a bit of naivety there in some respects, because Warburtons felt that because they baked excellent bread, and they have been doing it for over 140 years, gluten-free wouldn't be much of a challenge, but in reality it was. And I started talking, I wasn't with Warburtons at the time, but I started talking to Warburtons around the back end of 2011, early 2012, when they said they were clearly having problems in terms of baking gluten-free bread, and asked me to come and have a look at the business. So that was the start of my involvement, and also the start of an interesting journey for Warburtons and Newburn Bakehouse, which is the gluten-free brand for Warburtons. The free-from category continues to grow, and how Warburtons and Newburn Bakehouse are developing and innovating is really interesting. From those early days in 2011, one of the key objectives is to produce the best gluten-free bread out there in the market. And that's a real challenge, not just for Warburtons, but anybody who's making gluten-free bread. Everybody aspires to making something that tastes as good as conventional bread, and it's really difficult. But we certainly feel at Warburtons now, with the effort we've put in very much to our artisanal range, that we've got a range of bread products that you'd be hard pushed to tell the difference. And I think that's the key requirement in terms of any innovation. And that's the mantra that we work to at Warburtons, that you have to produce products that are as good as mainstream, or certainly aspire to get there. And I think with all our innovation and all our MPD, we look to mimic and compare ourselves, not with the competitors in the gluten-free market, but really the leading products in mainstream. And I think that's what drives us on, and it does drive us on continually. And so we're always aspiring to get a better product out there. And that means looking at ingredients, looking at new processes, looking at different baking technologies to achieve the best. And I think if you get bread right, that's a really good starter. And then the rest of our innovation follows on from bread. So we were first to market with wraps, and we were delighted with that. To actually make a product fold and bend with no gluten in is a major achievement. And we're really pleased with the progress our wraps have made. And then that's followed up recently with crumpets. We make fresh crumpets, and obviously as Warburtons in the main business, crumpets are a key product and synonymous with Warburtons. So it was vital that as Newburn Bakehouse we had a gluten-free crumpet out there in the marketplace. So we certainly have a clear pathway in terms of innovation, and we listen to our consumers. And we understand what our consumers want. We spend a lot of time talking to our consumers. You can never lose touch, and you should never lose sight of what your consumers are looking for. And I think that's really important as part of your innovation planning. Looking forward at the future opportunities and the challenges, I think it's fair to say there are plenty. The market continues to develop. I think there are distinct opportunities within food to go. The retail sector that covers free from the supermarkets, they do that very well. They've devoted a lot of fixture space and a lot of products. There's a lot of products fighting for that space, but the range is really, really comprehensive. When I first started out 30 years ago, the only product was a tinned bread. So I've seen some phenomenal changes and some phenomenal progress. But I think the fundamental challenge is making sure that the gluten-free products are of a quality and of a standard that are acceptable and comparable to mainstream. And that's the challenge with food service and food to go. Providing a gluten-free option for people who are literally going about their everyday life, particularly midday, is really difficult, because you're looking for something that A, you're guaranteed is gluten-free, and B, is going to satisfy you and give you some enjoyment. And I always come back to those sort of fundamentals that we've got to look at what sort of foods people enjoy eating. And you look at the amount of people who are eating out of home now. I think the out of home market is where the next sort of steps will be. And then I think the interesting debate I'm having with retailers is whether or not free from will stay as a designated area or whether ultimately it will migrate into mainstream. And I think that's the conundrum for a lot of retailers, is whether to move some of the better quality products into mainstream and see if they can hold their own, and really provide a free from option to a much broader audience rather than just purely diagnosed celiacs.